Hello guys, my name is Armin. I want to talk about deploying a dockerized application into AWS Fargate. Before getting to that, I would like to differentiate between a couple of services that AWS offers. The first one is EC2, AWS Fargate, and AWS ECS. EC2 is like a virtual machine that we can run our Docker container on, or we can install Python, Java, or any library that we want. Basically, it's like a virtual machine. AWS Fargate, on the other hand, is used as a serverless service on which we can run our containers, as many containers as we want. ECS, Elastic Container Service, is like some sort of management tool that can manage EC2 instances and AWS Fargate services or tasks. The prerequisites for deploying an application into AWS Fargate is that first of all we have to have a Docker image, and Docker has to be installed on our local machine. And then the moment that we have the Docker image, we have to have an application, for example, a backend written in Java or Python, or a front end, for example. So it depends on you what kind of application you want. After that, you have to have an AWS account. Then you can be the root user, or users having sufficient and enough permissions to be able to use AWS ECR. ECR stands for Elastic Container Registry. And ECR is used so that we can push our Docker image into AWS ECR. So I'm just going to go over these steps, and I'm going to walk you through a step-by-step visual guidance that how exactly it works. The first one is like we have to Dockerize the application to have the Docker image. The moment that we have the Docker image, the second step is that we have to push it into Elastic Container Registry, or ECR. After that, we have to go to ECS, and then we have to create a cluster. Basically, a cluster, we can think of a cluster as let's say a group of a thing that can run a lot of services. And then you have to create a task definition. An ECS task definition basically is like some sort of a definition that you use for, let's say, defining RAM, CPU, or some other things that actually in the example I will give you more insight about. Then we will create a service. So ECS cluster can have many services, and each service can have many tasks. Basically, each task is just one container. And then we have to monitor using logs or other metrics. So I will walk you through this process. As mentioned earlier in the slides, the very first step is to have a Docker file for our project. So this is the base image of our Docker file, and then we just run a couple of Docker commands to make sure that the application is installed, and also we expose 8000 as the port. We have to build this image and push it to AWS ECR. I assume that we already have done that, so we go to AWS console and we go to Amazon Elastic Container Service, or ECS. In the ECS, we can create a new cluster, or we can create an already created cluster. So because I already have created this new cluster, we're going to use this. Here, as you can see, there is no services and there is no tasks. I can go to task definitions, and then I can select, for example, this task definition, and let me just open it. And basically all it does, it determines the CPU and the task memory. So you see that, like, for this task or this Docker container, we have dedicated 10 gigabytes of RAM and 4 vCPUs. the moment that we have this task, we are able to deploy this. And what we want to do is we want to create a service. So we want to have a service to be able to run as many tasks as possible. And then we want to choose our cluster, whose name is new cluster. And as you can see, the capacity provider here is AWS Fargate. And then we want the service, and the service name is that AWS Fargate. And then just all we need to do is we create the new service. It takes few minutes so that the service gets created. The moment that the service is created, we can run as many tasks as we want in it. So as you can see, the new cluster has a new service in it, whose name is AWS Fargate. And when we go to that, we can see, well, CPU utilization and memory utilization. It takes a couple of minutes so that they appear. And then here you can see one task running, and 0 pending. You can go to the tasks. So, and this one, you can see this task. So this service has only one task running. And if you go here, this is the public IP for this task. If you just copy this, and if you remember, I told you that we exposed port 8000. So the moment that we go to this, we will see this one. So it just shows the time, and if I just run it again, it shows the time. And if you want to check the logs and everything, you are able to do that using the logs configuration here. It will show you all the logs and everything that you can see, and it is very good for monitoring. Thank you.